The signal was weak. It flickered across Lieutenant Amy Crawford's console like a dying heartbeat, almost lost among the background noise of deep space. She leaned forward in her chair, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. The monitoring station was quiet at this hour. Most of her colleagues had gone to sleep, leaving only the soft hum of machines to keep her company. Amy isolated the frequency and ran it through the translator. The words that appeared on her screen made her blood run cold. "This is Colony Vareth Prime. We are under attack. Korax slavers have surrounded our world. They are taking our people. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. Our defenses have fallen. We have no ships left. Please, help us." The message repeated again and again, growing weaker each time. Amy checked the origin point and felt her stomach drop. The signal came from Volanti space. The same Volanti who had stood before the Galactic Council 15 years ago and argued that humans were too dangerous to join their alliance. The same species that had called humanity a threat to galactic peace. For a long moment, Amy sat still. Part of her wanted to ignore the signal. Let them face their problems alone, just as they had left humanity alone when it needed friends among the stars. But then, she thought about the children. The families. The innocent people who had nothing to do with politics. They were being taken by slavers right now, and every second she waited meant more of them would be lost. Amy pressed the emergency communication button. "This is Lieutenant Crawford at Outpost 7. I need to speak with Captain Morrison immediately. We have a situation." 30 minutes later, Captain Daniel Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, reading the same message Amy had received. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and deep lines around his eyes. 20 years of service had taught him many things, but none of his experience had prepared him for this moment. "The Volanthi," he said quietly. "They really have some nerve asking for help." Commander Kevin Walsh stood beside him, arms crossed over his chest. "We have no obligation to respond, sir. They made their feelings about humanity very clear. They called us monsters. They called us dangerous," Morrison corrected. "There is a difference, is there? They kept us out of the council. They blocked our trade agreements. They treated us like wild animals." Morrison turned to look out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of people were being herded onto slave ships. Children were being ripped from their parents. Families were being torn apart. And the Volanti had no one to help them because they had pushed away the only species strong enough to fight the Korax. "Contact Fleet Command," Morrison said finally. "This decision is above my authority." The communication reached Admiral Carol Bennett within the hour. She sat in her office aboard the massive carrier Unity, reading the distress signal for the 5th time. Her aide stood nervously by the door, waiting for orders. Admiral Bennett was 62 years old. She had fought in 3 wars and buried more friends than she could count. She had seen the best and worst of humanity, and she had learned one truth above all others. Power without purpose was meaningless. "Admiral?" her aide asked. "What are your orders?" Bennett stood and walked to the window. Outside, the 7th Fleet floated in formation. 217 warships, from small destroyers to massive battleships. The most powerful military force humanity had ever assembled. And right now, she was the only person who could send them into battle. "The Volanti treated us badly," she said, not turning around. "They feared us. They rejected us. They made us feel unwelcome in a galaxy we only wanted to explore in peace." "Yes, Admiral, but that is not who we are." She turned to face her aide. "We do not keep score when innocent lives are at stake. We do not measure the worth of children by the politics of their governments. Humanity did not become strong so we could ignore those who suffer." She walked to her desk and pressed the fleet-wide communication button. This is Admiral Bennett to all ships. Effective immediately. I am activating Protocol Thunderclap. All vessels are to prepare for emergency deployment. Our destination is the Volanti colony world of Varith Prime. The Corax Dominion has attacked a civilian population, and they are taking slaves. We are going to stop them. She paused for a moment, then continued. I know some of you are wondering why we should help a species that turned their backs on us. I understand that feeling. But I want you to remember something. The Volanti did not attack us. They did not harm us. They were afraid, and afraid people make poor decisions. That does not mean their children deserve to become slaves. Across the fleet, men and women stopped what they were doing to listen. We are going to show the galaxy what humanity stands for. We do not fight because we enjoy war. We fight because there are people who cannot fight for themselves. We answer all calls for help. That is who we are. That is what makes us human. She released the button and turned to her aide. Begin launch preparations. I want the fleet in hyperspace within 6 hours. Yes, Admiral. As the aide rushed out, Bennett looked one more time at the stars outside her window. The Volanti had called humanity dangerous. They were right. But they had failed to understand that humans were only dangerous to those who preyed upon the innocent. The Corax were about to learn that lesson. Across the fleet, engines began to hum with power. Fighters were loaded into launch bays. Marines checked their weapons and armor. Medics prepared their equipment. 217 ships began to move into formation. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing their most mighty fleet. The fleet moved through hyperspace like a school of metal fish swimming through a river of light. Inside the ships, the crew prepared for what was coming. No one knew exactly what they would find when they arrived, but everyone knew it would be bad. Admiral Bennett called a meeting of all senior officers through holographic link. Their images appeared around the conference table on the Unity. Each captain and commander looking grim but determined. Intelligence reports indicate the Corax have approximately 600 ships in the system, Commander Kevin Walsh said, pulling up a tactical display. They outnumber us almost 3 to 1. Captain Morrison studied the display. What class of vessels? Mostly medium cruisers and transport ships. The transports are for carrying slaves. They have about 40 heavy warships providing protection. Dr. Laura Pierce, the chief xenobiologist, raised her hand. Admiral, I need to brief the rescue teams on Volanti physiology. They are fragile compared to humans. Their bones break easily, and they cannot tolerate rapid temperature changes. Our medics need to know how to handle them without causing additional harm. Arrange the briefings immediately, Bennett ordered. I want every Marine and medic to know exactly how to help these people. She turned to address the entire group. I know the numbers look bad. 600 against 200. But I want you to remember who we are. We come from Earth, a world that tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and wars. We did not become the dominant species on our planet by running from fights. The officers nodded slowly. The Corax have never faced humans in battle, Bennett continued. They prey on weak species. They attack colonies that cannot defend themselves. They have grown soft and careless. They think numbers are everything. She smiled, and there was something fierce in her eyes. We are going to teach them that quality matters more than quantity. In the Marine quarters of the USS Valiant, Sergeant Rick Daniels gathered his squad for a final briefing. His soldiers sat in a circle, checking their weapons and listening carefully. The mission is simple, Daniels said. We hit the ground, we find the prisoners, and we get them out. No one gets left behind. Not our people, not the Volanti. Everyone comes home. A young private raised her hand. Sarge, what if the Volanti don't want our help? I heard they hate humans. Daniel shook his head. Their government rejected our council application. That does not mean ordinary people hate us. And even if they did, it would not matter. We are not doing this for thanks. We are doing this because it is right. He looked around at his squad. When those Volanthi children see us coming, they will not care about politics. They will only see someone coming to save them. That is what I want you to remember. We are the good guys today. Act like it. The squad responded with a chorus of agreement. Meanwhile, Ambassador Thielen Vo huddled in a basement on Vareth Prime, listening to the sounds of destruction above. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that had seen too much horror in the past 3 days. The Korax had come without warning. Their ships had filled the sky, blocking out the sun. The Volanthi defense fleet had fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Within hours, the battle was over. Now the slavers walked through the streets, dragging families from their homes. Thielen had been a diplomat. He had spoken at the Galactic Council many times. He had voted against human membership because he believed they were too aggressive, too violent, too unpredictable. He had called them Deathworlders and meant it as an insult. Now, hiding in the darkness while his people screamed above him, he wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. A young Volanthi girl sat beside him, trembling with fear. She had been separated from her parents during the first attack. Thielen had found her wandering the streets and brought her to safety. Are we going to die? She whispered. No, Thielen said, though he did not believe his own words. Someone will come to help us. Who? We have no friends. We have no friends. Everyone is afraid of us now. Thielen had no answer. The Volanthi had spent centuries building alliances based on shared weakness. They had bonded with other peaceful species, other prey animals who feared the predators of the galaxy. They had rejected humanity because humans were predators themselves. But predators did not answer distress calls. Predators did not risk their lives for strangers. Predators did not care about justice or mercy, not at least. That was what Thielen had believed. He was about to learn how wrong he had been. Deep in hyperspace, the human fleet continued its journey. Engineers ran final checks on weapon systems. Pilots ran simulations in their fighters. Officers studied maps of the colony and identified key targets. Admiral Bennett stood alone on the observation deck, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace pass by. In a few hours, her people would go to war. Some of them would not come back. She thought about the Volanthi, a species so afraid of violence that they could not protect themselves. She thought about the Korax, a species so addicted to cruelty that they built their entire civilization on slavery. And she thought about humanity, caught somewhere in between. Humans knew violence. They had practiced it against each other for thousands of years. But they had also learned to control it, to direct it, to use it only when necessary. They had learned that true strength meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Volanthi system. 217 ships appeared in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. Long-range sensors showed the devastation below. Cities burned on the planet's surface. Korax ships filled the orbit, loading captured civilians into their holds. Admiral Bennett opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Bennett. We have arrived. The enemy is before us. Remember why we are here. Remember who we are fighting for. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity truly means. She took a deep breath. All ships, battle stations. Prepare to engage. The Korax commander stared at his sensor display in confusion. The readings made no sense. 200 ships had appeared at the edge of the system, but they matched no known species in the galactic database. Identify those vessels, he ordered. His sensor officer worked quickly, then went pale. Commander, they are human ships. Human? The commander laughed. The Deathworlders? What are they doing here? The Volanti rejected them years ago. There is no reason for them to interfere. Should we hail them? The commander shrugged. Why not? Perhaps they want to negotiate for some of the slaves. I hear humans make excellent workers. He activated the communication channel and spoke with the confidence of a predator who had never met a larger predator. Attention, human fleet. This system is under Korak's control. You have entered restricted space. State your business or leave immediately. We do not wish conflict, but we will defend our property if necessary. Admiral Bennett's response came through crystal clear. This is Admiral Carol Bennett of the United Earth Navy. You will release all prisoners immediately. You will withdraw your ships from this system. If you refuse, we will destroy your fleet. The Korak's commander blinked in surprise, then burst out laughing. You threaten me. Look at your numbers, human. I have 3 times your ships. You cannot win this fight. I am not making a threat, Bennett replied calmly. I am giving you a choice. Release the civilians and live, or keep them and die. You have 60 seconds to decide. The commander ended the communication and turned to his officers with amusement on his face. Foolish creatures. They think bravery can replace numbers. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the humans and add their survivors to our cargo. 600 Korak ships began to move toward the human fleet. They spread out in a wide arc, planning to surround the smaller force and crush it from all sides. Admiral Bennett watched them come without fear. All ships, execute pattern Delta 7. Fighters, launch on my mark. The human fleet did not scatter or retreat. Instead, the ships moved into a tight formation, concentrating their firepower. Hundreds of small fighters launched from carrier bays, forming protective screens around the larger vessels. Weapons free, Bennett ordered. Show them what Deathworlders can do. The first volley of human missiles streaked across space. They moved faster than anything the Koraks had ever seen, guided by targeting systems that could track a ship through every evasive maneuver it attempted. The Koraks had shields. Every spacefaring species had shields. Human missiles punched through them like they were made of paper. 12 Korak ships exploded in the first 30 seconds of battle. Their commanders did not even have time to register what had happened before they died. The Korak's commander stared at his display in disbelief. Impossible. Increase power to shields. Return fire. His ships launched their own weapons, but human electronic warfare systems scrambled their targeting. Most of the missiles missed completely. The few that found their targets exploded harmlessly against human armor that had been designed to survive the radiation of stars. Captain Morrison guided the USS Valiant straight into the heart of the enemy formation. His ship twisted and rolled between larger vessels, its weapons firing in every direction. Target their engine systems, Morrison ordered. Disable the transports first. We need to keep the prisoners from being taken out of the system. Commander Walsh coordinated the attack from his tactical station. 3 transports disabled. 5 more locked on. Keep firing. In the cockpit of a small fighter, a young pilot named Kyle flew through a storm of enemy fire. His targeting computer highlighted a Korak's cruiser that was trying to flee. Not today, he muttered. Launching his missiles, the cruiser exploded in a ball of fire, all across the battlefield. The same scene repeated. Human ships that should have been overwhelmed by numbers instead tore through the enemy with terrifying efficiency. Every weapon found its target. Every pilot flew with skill that seemed almost supernatural to their enemies. The Koraks had never fought a species from a death world before. They did not understand that humans had evolved in an environment where only the strongest survived. They did not know that human reaction times were faster, human endurance was greater, and human determination was unbreakable. They learned these things the hard way. In his basement hiding spot, Ambassador Thielen Vior heard the sounds of battle in the sky. He crawled to a window and looked up, expecting to see more Corax ships arriving. Instead, he saw human vessels cutting through the enemy fleet like blades through soft flesh. He saw Corax ships burning and falling from orbit. He saw the impossible happening before his eyes. "They came," he whispered. The humans actually came. The little girl beside him tugged at his sleeve. Who came? Who was fighting? Thielen could not find the words. 15 years ago, he had stood before the Galactic Council and warned everyone about the dangerous Deathworlders. From Earth, he had said they could not be trusted. He had said they would bring only destruction. He had been right about the destruction. He had just been wrong about who would receive it. The humans, he finally said. The humans came to save us. The girl looked confused. But I thought they were monsters. Thielen watched another Corax ship explode above them. So did I. The battle raged for 3 more hours. The Corax tried every tactic they knew, but nothing worked. Their numerical advantage meant nothing against superior weapons, superior training, and superior will. Finally, the Corax commander made the only decision left to him. All ships, retreat. Leave the prisoners. Leave everything. Just run. But before his ship could enter hyperspace, a human missile found its engine. The flagship drifted dead in space as Admiral Bennett's voice filled the communication channel. Corax forces, this is Admiral Bennett. Your flagship is disabled. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now or be destroyed. There will be no second warning. The remaining Corax ships began to broadcast surrender signals. Their crews emerged from their vessels with their hands raised, confused by the idea that anyone would show them mercy. Admiral Bennett turned to Captain Morrison's image on her display. Captain, begin the ground operation. There are still civilians down there who need our help. Yes, Admiral. The Marines are ready. Bennett nodded. The space battle was won, but the mission was not over. The people of Vareth Prime were still waiting to be saved. The dropships fell through the atmosphere like metal rain. Inside each one, human Marines sat in silence, checking their weapons one final time. They had trained for missions like this for years. Now it was time to prove that training was worth something. Sergeant Rick Daniels looked at the soldiers under his command. They were young, most of them experiencing their first real combat. He could see the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. Listen up, he said over the noise of the engines. When we hit the ground, we move fast and we move together. Our target is the central processing facility where the Corax are holding prisoners. We secure the building, we free the civilians, and we get them to the extraction points. Simple. What about enemy resistance? A private asked. The Corax ground forces are not like their fleet. They are guards and slave catchers, not real soldiers. They have never faced anything that can fight back. Today, they meet us. Daniel smiled grimly. I almost feel sorry for them. The dropship shook as anti-aircraft fire exploded around them. The pilot's voice came through the speakers. Heavy fire ahead. Prepare for rough landing. Daniels grabbed his harness tighter. You heard him. Get ready. The ship touched down hard in the middle of a burning street. The rear door opened before the dust had settled, and the Marines poured out like water from a broken pipe. They fanned out in every direction, weapons raised, eyes searching for threats. The city looked like a nightmare. Buildings were destroyed. Fires burned everywhere. Bodies lay in the streets, some Volanthi and some Corax. The sounds of screaming came from somewhere in the distance. Move, Daniels ordered. Follow the screams. They ran through the streets, encountering small groups of Corax along the way. The aliens tried to fight, but they were no match for human soldiers. Their weapons were designed to control unarmed civilians, not battle-trained warriors in combat armor. Each encounter lasted only seconds. The Marines did not slow down. Dr. Laura Pierce followed behind the combat teams with her medical unit. She carried supplies designed specifically for Volante physiology, tools that could mend their fragile bones and treat their sensitive systems. Every few blocks, they found survivors hiding in ruins. "It is okay," Pierce told them gently. "We are here to help. Can you walk?" Most of the Volante were too shocked to respond. They stared at the human soldiers with wide eyes, unable to understand why their former enemies had come to save them. Pierce and her medics guided them toward the extraction points, where larger transport ships were landing to take civilians to safety. At the central processing facility, Daniels and his squad encountered their first real resistance. The building was surrounded by Corax troops who had fortified their position with heavy weapons. "They are protecting something important," Daniels observed. "Probably a large group of prisoners inside. How do we get in?" His second-in-command asked. "The direct way." Daniels pulled a grenade from his belt and threw it toward the nearest barricade. The explosion sent Corax soldiers flying in every direction. Before they could recover, the Marines charged. The fight was brutal but short. Human soldiers moved through the enemy positions with speed and precision that the Corax could not match. Every shot found its target. Every movement was calculated. Inside the facility, Daniels found what he had expected. Hundreds of Volante civilians were packed into cages like animals, waiting to be loaded onto slave ships that would never come. When they saw the human soldiers enter, they pressed against the bars with terror on their faces. "Easy," Daniel said, holding up his hands. "We are not here to hurt you. We are here to set you free." He shot the lock off the first cage. The door swung open, and the prisoners inside stumbled out, still unable to believe what was happening. An elderly Volante approached Daniels with tears running down his face. His legs were injured, and he could barely walk. "Why?" he asked. "Why did you come?" "We rejected you. We called you monsters." Daniels looked at the old man for a long moment. Then he bent down and lifted him carefully onto his back. "We do not leave people behind," Daniel said simply. "Not even people who called us names." He carried the elder out of the facility while his squad opened the remaining cages. Hundreds of Volante followed them into the streets, where medical teams waited to help them. Commander Zeth, the Volante defense coordinator, had survived the initial attack by hiding with a small group of soldiers. For 3 days, they had fought a hopeless battle against the Corax, losing more people every hour. When he saw the human Marines, his first instinct was fear. But then he saw what they were doing. They were freeing prisoners. They were healing the wounded. They were protecting his people with their own bodies. Zeth approached a human officer and bowed his head. "I do not understand you," he said. "We treated you poorly. Why would you sacrifice your lives for us?" The officer, a young woman with blood on her face and exhaustion in her eyes, smiled at him. "Because you needed help," she said. "That is all the reason we need." Zeth felt something change inside him. His entire life, he had been taught that strength meant violence, that powerful species were dangerous by nature. The humans proved that wrong. They were the most powerful force he had ever seen, and they used that power to protect the weak. He picked up a weapon from a fallen Corax soldier. "Then let me help you," he said. "Show me where to fight." Together, humans and Volante pushed through the city, clearing buildings and rescuing civilians. The Corax resistance crumbled under the combined assault. By nightfall, the capital was secure. Sergeant Daniel sat on a pile of rubble, watching the last transports carry civilians to safety. His armor was dented and burned. His muscles ached with exhaustion. But when a young Volante child walked up to him and offered him a small flower she had found in the ruins. He smiled. "Thank you," he said, taking the flower gently. The girl smiled back, then ran to join her family. Daniels looked at the flower in his massive, armored hand. Such a small thing. Such a fragile thing. But worth fighting for. They were all worth fighting for. The sun rose over Vareth Prime for the first time in 5 days without fear. The fires had been put out. The wounded had been treated. The dead had been counted and mourned. And the humans were still there, helping to rebuild what had been destroyed. Admiral Bennett walked through the streets of the capital, surrounded by her officers and a group of Volanthi leaders. The damage was severe, but the people were already returning to their homes. Children played in the rubble, their laughter a sign that hope had returned to this world. 847 human soldiers had died in the battle. Thousands more were wounded. It was a heavy price to pay for a people who had never shown humanity any kindness. But as Bennett looked at the faces around her, she knew the price had been worth it. Ambassador Thylon Vire approached her with the little girl from the basement walking beside him. He had aged 10 years in the past week. His eyes carried the weight of everything he had witnessed. "Admiral Bennett," he said, bowing low, "I do not have words to express what I feel. You came when no one else would. You fought for us when we had given you every reason to ignore our cries." Bennett looked at him calmly. "We did not come for gratitude, Ambassador. We came because people were suffering." "I know. And that makes it even harder to understand." Thylon's voice cracked with emotion. 15 years ago, I spoke against your species at the Galactic Council. I said humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. I convinced others to reject your membership application." He paused, struggling to continue. "I was wrong. I was so terribly wrong. You are everything I said you were not. You are protectors. You are guardians. You are heroes." The little girl stepped forward and looked up at Bennett with curious eyes. "Are you really from a death world?" she asked. Bennett knelt down to meet her gaze. "Yes, I am. Earth is a difficult place to live. The weather tries to kill us. The animals try to eat us. Even the plants can be dangerous. But you survived?" "We did more than survive. We learned to protect each other. We learned that the universe is harsh, so we must be kind. We learned that strength without compassion is meaningless." The girl thought about this for a moment. "Is that why you saved us?" Bennett smiled. "Yes, that is exactly why." She stood up and addressed the crowd that had gathered around them. Volanthi citizens had come from all parts of the city to see the human admiral who had sent her fleet to rescue them. "People of Vareth Prime, I know you have suffered greatly. I know you have lost family and friends. Nothing can undo that pain. But I want you to know that you are not alone anymore. Humanity will stand with any species that needs protection. We will answer any call for help, no matter who sends it." The crowd was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, they began to clap. The sound grew louder and louder until it echoed through the streets. Volanthi voices called out words of thanks in languages Bennett did not understand, but the meaning was clear. Elder Myris, the leader of the colony, stepped forward. He was old and frail, barely able to walk after his time in captivity. But his voice was strong. "Admiral Bennett, on behalf of my people, I wish to perform ceremony. In our culture, we honor those who have given their lives for others by inscribing their names in stone. These stones are placed in our most sacred locations, where they will be remembered forever." He gestured to a group of workers who were carrying a large white stone. "With your permission, I would like to inscribe the names of your fallen soldiers on this memorial. They died protecting Volanthi children. They deserve to be remembered by those children for all time." Bennett felt tears forming in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "It would be our honor, Elder Myris." The ceremony took place that evening. One by one, the names of the 847 fallen humans were carved into the white stone. Volanthi priests spoke prayers in their ancient language. Human soldiers stood in attention, saluting their fallen friends. When it was finished, Elder Myrus placed the stone in the center of the town square, where everyone could see it. From this day forward, he declared, no Volanthi child will grow up without knowing what humanity did for us. These names will be taught in our schools. These stories will be told around our family tables. The Deathworlders came to save us, and we will never forget. The next morning, a message arrived from Earth. The Galactic Council had called an emergency session. News of humanity's rescue mission had spread across the galaxy, and the other species were demanding to discuss. Admiral Bennett read the message and smiled. It seems we have caused quite a stir, she said to Captain Morrison. Good. It was time someone shook things up. A second message arrived shortly after. This one was from Ambassador Thylan VR. Admiral Bennett, I have made a decision. When the Council meets, I will personally sponsor humanity's application for membership. I will tell them what I witnessed here. I will tell them that they were wrong about you, just as I was wrong. Bennett felt a weight lift from her shoulders. But before she could respond, a third message appeared on her console. Then a fourth. Then a fifth. Distress calls. From 3 different systems. 3 different species who had heard about what humanity did for the Volanthi. 3 different populations who were facing their own crises and hoping the Deathworlders would help them too. Morrison looked at the messages and shook his head with wonder. We just finished 1 rescue mission, and now we have 3 more waiting. Bennett stood and looked out at the stars. The universe was vast and full of suffering. There would always be more people who needed help. More children who needed protection. More voices crying out in the darkness. Then we better get moving, she said. Set a course for the nearest distress signal. Notify the rest of the fleet. Yes, Admiral. As the USS Valiant prepared to leave orbit, Bennett took one last look at Verith Prime. The white memorial stone was visible from space, glowing in the sunlight. 847 names carved in stone, remembered forever by a species that had once feared humanity. It was a good beginning, but only a beginning. The fleet entered hyperspace, leaving the rescued world behind and heading toward the next crisis. Behind them, the Volanthi watched the stars where their saviors had disappeared. Ambassador Thylan Vio stood with the little girl at his side. She held his hand tightly and looked up at the sky. Will they come back? She asked. Thylan smiled. If we need them, yes. They will always come back. That is who they are. The girl nodded, satisfied with the answer. Above them, 217 human ships flew through the stars, ready to answer the next call for help. Ready to show the galaxy that strength and compassion could exist together. Ready to prove that the Deathworlders were not monsters, but guardians. The mighty fleet flew on, and the universe would never be the same.